The crystal chandelier above the hotel ballroom scattered light like diamonds across marble floors. Hundreds of Manhattan's elite moved through the space in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos, their laughter tinkling like champagne glasses, their conversations worth millions. Sienna Hayes didn't belong here. She knew it. They knew it. But the catering company had been desperate for last-minute servers, and she'd been desperate for the $200 cash payout that came with working a Friday night event. No questions asked. No background checks. Just show up in the black uniform they provided and keep your head down. The tray in her hands weighed nothing. 6 champagne flutes, expertly balanced, but her arms trembled anyway. Not from the weight. From the fever that had been climbing since this morning. From the dizziness that made the ballroom tilt and sway. From the bone-deep exhaustion of a body that hadn't known real rest in 3 weeks. 3 weeks since she'd run. 3 weeks since Detective Marcus Chin had found her in that basement. 3 weeks since she'd learned that surviving sometimes hurt worse than dying. Just 2 more hours, she told herself. 2 more hours and you get paid. 2 more hours and you can afford the antibiotics. 2 more hours and... The floor rushed up to meet her. Or maybe she rushed down to meet it. Time slowed in that strange way it does during catastrophe. She saw the champagne flutes leave the tray, saw them arc through the air in perfect slow motion, saw the liquid gold suspended like amber. She saw faces turn toward her, shocked, annoyed, entertained by the spectacle of the help embarrassing herself. She didn't see him move. But suddenly there were arms around her. Strong arms that caught her mid-fall, that pulled her against a chest that felt like granite wrapped in expensive wool. The champagne flutes shattered on marble somewhere far away, but she was suspended in air, held by someone who'd crossed impossible distance in impossible time. "I've got you." The voice was deep, quiet, with the faintest trace of an accent that softened the edges of English. Korean her fever-fogged brain supplied. Educated abroad. The kind of voice that commanded rooms without ever raising its volume. Sienna's eyes struggled to focus. Through the haze she saw a face that belonged on ancient warrior paintings. Sharp cheekbones. A jaw that could cut glass. Eyes so dark they swallowed light. And tattoos. Elegant Korean script that crawled up from the collar of his black suit, wrapping around his throat like poetry made ink. He adjusted his hold, one arm under her knees, the other supporting her back, and his hand brushed her forearm. She felt him go absolutely still. The world narrowed to that point of contact. His fingers warm against her skin. The moment his thumb grazed what was hidden beneath her sleeve. Then he pushed the fabric up. Sienna tried to pull away, tried to hide it, but she had no strength left. Could only watch as he exposed what she'd been concealing for weeks. Bruises. Dark purple and yellow-green, finger-shaped and unmistakable. Not from a fall. Not from clumsiness. From hands that had gripped too hard, held too long, hurt on purpose. His entire body went rigid. Those dark eyes fixed on her arm with an intensity that should have terrified her. But there was no confusion in his gaze. Only recognition. He knew. He knew exactly what those marks meant. His jaw clenched, the tattoos on his throat shifting as he swallowed. When he looked up at the crowd, at the hundreds of people pretending not to stare, his beautiful face transformed into something brutal. "Everyone out." 2 words. Spoken quietly. But the ballroom emptied in under 3 minutes. That's when Sienna knew. She'd just been caught by the most dangerous man in the room. And for some reason she'd never felt safer in her life. The Mafia boss. His name was Kong Miho. Sienna learned this from the hushed conversations of the remaining staff as they were efficiently ushered out by men in dark suits who moved with military precision. She learned other things too, whispered in urgent tones by the catering manager who looked ready to faint himself. "That's Kong Miho. The Kong Miho. Don't look at him directly. Don't speak unless spoken to. Jesus Christ, how did you manage to collapse in front of him?" Sienna wanted to explain that she hadn't managed anything, that fainting wasn't a choice, wasn't strategy, was simply what happened when your body gave up. But her tongue was thick in her mouth, her vision still swimming. Miho carried her through the now empty ballroom as if she weighed nothing. His footsteps echoed on marble. Behind him, 3 men followed. One spoke rapidly into his phone in Korean, another scanned the space with predator's eyes. The third kept his hand inside his jacket where Sienna assumed a weapon waited. "The car is ready, Hyung-nim," the first man said, switching to English. Dr. Yoon is en route to the penthouse. Good. Miho's voice rumbled through his chest into Sienna's ear. Clear the route. No delays. Sir, about the event. Cancelled. Send appropriate apologies and double whatever charity was supposed to receive tonight. I don't care about the optics. They exited into cold November air. A black SUV idled at the curb, windows tinted so dark they looked like solid obsidian. The door opened. Miho slid inside with her still in his arms, settling her on the leather seat beside him. The door closed. The world outside became muffled, distant. Inside smelled like cedar and leather and something else. Power maybe. The kind that didn't need to announce itself. Sienna tried to sit up, tried to put distance between herself and this stranger who held her like she was something precious instead of broken. I should. Be still. His hand, gentle but firm, pressed her shoulder back against the seat. You're burning up with fever. When did you last eat? The question was so unexpected that she answered honestly. Yesterday. Maybe. His jaw clenched again. In the dim interior light she could see more details. The scar cutting through his left eyebrow, the way his perfectly tailored suit couldn't quite hide the muscle beneath, the careful control in every micro-expression. This was a man who'd learned to weaponize stillness. And the bruises? He asked it quietly, but there was steel underneath. How recent? 3 weeks. The person who did this is dead. The words came out flat. True. Detective Chin had made sure of that. He can't hurt anyone anymore. Something flickered in Miho's eyes. Not relief. Recognition maybe. Or understanding. Good. The SUV pulled into traffic. Through the tinted windows, Sienna watched Manhattan blur past. A city she'd been hiding in, running through, trying to disappear into. Where are we going? Her voice sounded small even to her own ears. My home. You need medical attention. I can't afford. You're not being asked to pay. He adjusted the jacket he'd draped over her shoulders. When had he done that? Consider it compensation for ruining my evening. Despite everything, Sienna almost laughed. I ruined your evening by fainting? You ruined it by making me realize I've been wasting time at meaningless events when there are people in my city who need help. His eyes held hers. Starting with you. You don't even know me. No, he agreed. But I know bruises like those. I know what it takes to survive them. And I know. He stopped, jaw working like he was chewing on words he wasn't sure he should say. I know what it looks like when someone is running on empty, one step away from collapse, still trying to stay invisible. The accuracy of his assessment stole her breath. I'm Kong Miho, he said formally, as if they were meeting at a cocktail party instead of in the back of his SUV after he'd caught her mid-faint. And you are? Sienna Hayes. Well, Sienna Hayes. His hand, still resting on her shoulder, squeezed gently. Once. A gesture that felt like a promise. You're safe now. That's all that matters. Safe. The word felt foreign. Sienna had forgotten what that felt like. But as the SUV carried them through the night, Miho's presence solid and unwavering beside her, she found herself wanting to believe him. Wanting to believe that maybe, just maybe, she'd been caught by the right monster. The survivor. Dr. Yoon Hae-jin arrived at Miho's Tribeca penthouse exactly 23 minutes after they did. Professional, efficient, she examined Sienna in a guest bedroom that was larger than any apartment Sienna had ever lived in. The doctor's hands were gentle as they probed carefully at Sienna's ribs, checking the older bruises, the healing fractures that hadn't been treated properly. When she pushed up Sienna's sleeves fully, both arms, her expression remained clinically neutral, but something sad flickered in her eyes. Broken rib, partially healed, Dr. Yoon confirmed, making notes on her tablet. Hairline fracture in your left wrist, also healing incorrectly. Severe dehydration, malnutrition, and a respiratory infection that's progressing toward pneumonia. She looked up. Miss Hayes, when did you last see a doctor? The ER. 3 weeks ago. Sienna's voice was hoarse. After Detective Chin found me. Dr. Yoon's fingers stilled on her tablet. Detective Chin? Marcus Chin from the Special Victims Unit. Sienna nodded. Understanding dawned in the doctor's expression. She'd seen this before, Sienna realized. Knew what it meant when SVU got involved. Knew what kinds of situations required that particular branch of NYPD. Did they give you prescriptions? Antibiotics? Pain medication? Yes, but Sienna's throat closed. She couldn't afford them. Couldn't risk using her real name at a pharmacy. Couldn't. I lost them. It was a lie. Dr. Yoon knew it was a lie. But she didn't push. I'm prescribing new ones. Mr. Kong has a private pharmacy account. Everything will be delivered within the hour. The doctor's voice softened. You also need rest. Real rest. Your body is shutting down, Ms. Hayes. If you'd continued working tonight, you would have ended up in the ER again. Or worse. I needed the money. And now you need to heal. Dr. Yoon closed her tablet. I'll return tomorrow to check on you. In the meantime, complete bed rest. Mr. Kong has been informed of your condition and care requirements. After the doctor left, Sienna found herself alone in the guest room. Truly alone for the first time in hours. She looked around at the space that was going to be hers, at least for tonight. Floor-to-ceiling windows with blackout curtains. A bed that looked like a cloud. Furniture that probably cost more than she'd earned in a year. Everything in shades of cream and gray, elegant and minimalist and completely foreign to her world. A soft knock at the door made her tense. Come in, she called, her voice still rough. It wasn't Miho. Instead, a woman entered, mid-40s, Korean, dressed in a simple but expensive black dress. She carried a tray with soup and tea, setting it on the nightstand with practiced care. I'm Mrs. Park, Mr. Kang's housekeeper, she said in lightly accented English. Her eyes were kind. Dr. Yoon said you need to eat small amounts. This is juk, Korean rice porridge. Very easy on the stomach. The smell alone made Sienna's eyes water. When was the last time someone had cooked for her? Cared whether she ate? Thank you, Sienna whispered. Mrs. Park helped her sit up against the pillows, adjusted them for maximum comfort, and placed the tray across her lap. There are clothes in the closet, my daughter's size. She's visiting family in Seoul, won't mind you borrowing. She gestured to the attached bathroom. Everything you need is there. If you require anything else, press the call button by the bed. Mrs. Park. Sienna caught the woman's hand before she could leave. Why is Mr. Kong doing this? I'm nobody. I'm just. You're someone who needed help, Mrs. Park interrupted gently. That's all that matters to him. He takes care of his people. But I'm not his people. Mrs. Park's smile was knowing, sad somehow. You're now, dear. Whether you understand it yet or not. After Mrs. Park left, Sienna ate the juk slowly. It was warm and savory, flavored with sesame oil and ginger. Each bite felt like medicine, like her body was remembering how to function properly. She was halfway through the bowl when the door opened again. This time it was Miho. He'd changed from his suit into black slacks and a white dress shirt with sleeves rolled to his elbows. The tattoos on his forearms were intricate, more Korean script, patterns that seemed to tell a story she couldn't read. His hair was slightly damp, like he'd recently showered. He looked less like a crime lord and more like a man. But no less dangerous. How are you feeling? He stayed in the doorway as if approaching too quickly might spook her. Better. Sienna set down the spoon with shaking hands. Thank you for all of this. The doctor, the food, the room. I'll pay you back as soon as I can. You won't. His tone left no room for argument. And you're not going anywhere until Dr. Yoon clears you. I have a job. I need to work. The catering company has been compensated for your absence. Miho moved into the room finally, settling into the chair beside the bed. Up close, she could see the lines of exhaustion around his eyes, the weight he carried in his shoulders. And I've ensured they know you won't be returning. Panic spiked through her. You can't just, I need that money. Why? The question was direct but not unkind. Talk to me, Sienna. Help me understand what you're running from. She should have lied. Should have deflected, protected herself the way she'd learned to do. But something about Miho's steady gaze, his patient waiting, broke through her defenses. So she told him. Sienna's backstory unfolds over the next several minutes, delivered emotionally but clearly. She'd been a paralegal at a mid-sized firm in Brooklyn. Good job, decent pay, a small apartment in Park Slope that she'd loved. She'd been seeing Brandon for 8 months. A trader at Goldman Sachs, charming and successful in everything that looked right on paper. The first time he hit her, he'd cried after. Apologized. Sworn it would never happen again. It happened again. And again. And again. The bruises were easy to hide at first. Long sleeves. Strategic makeup. Excuses about being clumsy, about walking into doors, about falling downstairs. Her co-workers believed her because it was easier than confronting the truth. Then came the night 6 weeks ago when Brandon's anger had escalated to something murderous. She tried to leave. He'd caught her at the door. What happened next was a blur of pain and terror and the certainty that she was going to die in her own apartment. She would have if her neighbor hadn't heard the screams and called 911. Detective Marcus Chun from Special Victims had been the one to take her statement in the hospital. He'd been kind, patient, determined to help her press charges. He'd promised her protection, promised her Brandon would face consequences. 3 days later, Brandon was found dead in his Midtown office. Single gunshot wound to the head. Suicide, the official report said. Gun registered in his name, note confessing to hurting someone he loved. But Sienna knew better. She'd seen Detective Chen's face when he delivered the news. Seen the carefully blank expression that said this wasn't suicide at all. Chen had eliminated the threat. For her. He told me to disappear, Sienna whispered, tears streaming down her face. Said there would be questions, investigations. Said I needed to become invisible until everything settled. So I did. I left my apartment, quit my job, started paying cash for everything. I've been sleeping in a women's shelter in the Bronx, taking whatever work I could find under the table. Miho listened without interrupting. His expression remained carefully neutral, but his hands had clenched into fists on his thighs. That detective, he said finally, voice rough. He killed for you. Yes. To protect you. Yes. And then made you disappear to cover his tracks. Sienna nodded miserably. I know it was wrong. I know I should have. He did the right thing. Miho's voice was fierce, certain. That man was going to kill you eventually. Detective Chin just ensured he didn't get the chance. He leaned forward, his dark eyes intense. But he should have provided better protection afterward. Should have made sure you were safe and cared for, not living in a shelter and working yourself into pneumonia. He couldn't risk. I don't care what he could or couldn't risk. Miho stood abruptly, pacing to the window. You survived attempted murder, Sienna. You deserve more than scraping by in shelters, more than fainting from fever in ballrooms while serving people who wouldn't notice if you died at their feet. The anger in his voice wasn't directed at her, she realized. It was for her. Why do you care? The question burst out before she could stop it. You don't know me. I'm nobody to you. He turned from the window and the expression on his face was complex. Pain and recognition and something that looked almost like longing. My sister, he said quietly. Minji. She was 19 when her boyfriend killed her. Beat her to death in a hotel room while I was across the city at a business meeting. His jaw clenched. I found her 3 hours too late. And I've lived with that failure every day since. Sienna's breath caught. I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry. Just understand. He moved back to the chair, sitting heavily. I see you, Sienna, and I see her. I see what she could have been if someone had helped in time. If someone had caught her when she fell. His hand reached out, hovering near hers on the bedspread. I can't save Minji. But I can help you. If you'll let me. She should have been suspicious. Should have questioned his motives, his interest, his sudden protective instinct toward a stranger. But she was so tired of running. So tired of being afraid. So tired of surviving alone. Slowly, carefully, she turned her hand palm up on the bedspread. An offering. An answer. Miho's larger hand covered hers. Warm. Thought. Okay, she whispered. Help me. His answering smile was small but genuine. Thank you for trusting me. Inciting incident. The protection begins. Sienna woke the next morning to sunlight filtering through partially open curtains and the smell of coffee. For a moment she was disoriented. This bed was too soft, this room too large, this pillow too expensive. Then memory crashed back. The ballroom. Miho. Everything she'd confessed. She sat up slowly, testing her body's response. The fever had broken. Her head was clearer. The antibiotics Dr. Yoon had prescribed were already working their magic. A soft knock preceded Mrs. Park entering with a breakfast tray. Joan Ockham, she said warmly. Good morning. How are you feeling? Better. Sienna accepted the tray. More juk, this time with a soft-boiled egg and green tea. Much better. Good. Mr. Kong left early for a meeting but asked me to give you this. Mrs. Park handed over a note written in elegant handwriting. Dr. Yoon will check on you this afternoon. Until then, rest. Use anything in the apartment you need. You're safe here. Consider this a sanctuary for as long as you require it. Miho. P.S. The library has a collection of legal thrillers if you get bored. Mrs. Park can show you. Despite everything, Sienna smiled. He'd remembered she was a paralegal, assumed she might enjoy legal fiction. The day passed in a strange, peaceful blur. She slept more than she had in weeks. Ate small, frequent meals that Mrs. Park brought. Explored the penthouse cautiously, tasteful artwork, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a view of Manhattan that took her breath away. It was late afternoon when she found the library Miho had mentioned. The room was all dark wood and leather furniture, walls lined with books in Korean, English, and what looked like Japanese. She was reaching for a John Grisham novel when voices drifted from the hallway, male voices speaking rapid Korean. Sienna froze, recognizing Miho's deep tone but not understanding the words. The other voice was higher, urgent, almost pleading. Then they switched to English, probably for the benefit of whoever else was in the conversation. Hyungnim, with respect, this is a risk. The unknown man sounded strained. She's a civilian. A witness to police corruption. If Chen's superiors start investigating, they won't. Miho's voice was cold, certain. Chen covered his tracks well. The boyfriend's death was ruled a suicide. Case closed. But if someone connects her to you, then they'll know she's under my protection. That should be warning enough. Pause. Then, you're putting a target on her back just by keeping her here. She already had a target on her back. Miho's tone sharpened. Living in shelters, working under the table, one step from the streets. That's not safety. That's slow death. So you're what? Keeping her? Like a pet. The sound that followed made Sienna flinch even through the wall. Something heavy hitting something solid, followed by a grunt of pain. Karefu, Juyu. Miho's voice was deadly quiet now. That woman survived a beating that should have killed her. She's been running for weeks with broken ribs and no help. She deserves respect, not your contempt. I didn't mean. Juno sounded genuinely apologetic now. I just worry about exposure, Hyungnim. About vulnerabilities. I know. But she stays. Non-negotiable. Sienna heard footsteps approaching and quickly grabbed the Grisham novel, settling into a leather armchair as if she'd been reading all along. The door opened. Miho entered, followed by a younger Korean man, mid-30s, sharp-featured, dressed in a dark suit similar to Miho's. Both men stopped when they saw her. Sienna. Miho's expression softened immediately. I didn't know you were in here. How are you feeling? Better. She set down the book. I heard voices. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but you heard anyway. He moved into the room, gesturing to the other man. This is Park Juno, my second in command. Juyu, DZ Sienna Hayes. Juno gave a polite nod, but his eyes were assessing, calculating. Miss Hayes. I apologize if my concern sounded callous. Your safety is important to us. Your safety specifically, Miho corrected, is important to me. Juno worries about operational security. It's his job. But you're not a security risk, Sienna. You're a person who needs help and I'm providing it. Simple as that. Nothing about this felt simple. But Sienna nodded anyway. After Juno left, Miho settled into the armchair across from hers, studying her with those intense dark eyes. How much did you hear? Enough to know I'm causing problems for you. You're not. I am. She met his gaze steadily. And I appreciate everything you've done, truly. But maybe Juno's right. Maybe I should leave before I become a liability. Absolutely not. The refusal was immediate, fierce. You're healing. You're safe. That matters more than Juno's paranoia. But if I'm putting you at risk. Sienna. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, closing the distance between them. I run an organization that operates in Manhattan's underworld. Risk is my baseline. What you represent, a chance to help someone to prevent another Minji, that's worth any risk. She searched his face, looking for the angle, the trap, the ulterior motive. Found only sincerity and something that looked almost like desperation. Okay, she whispered. I'll stay. For now. Good. He stood, offering his hand to help her up. Come on. Dinner will be ready soon and Mrs. Park made galbi. You'll love it. As they walked to the dining room together, his hand still holding hers, Sienna felt something shift in her chest. Something dangerous. She was starting to trust him. Starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, she'd found a sanctuary that was real. Week 1. Learning to breathe. The penthouse became Sienna's world. Not a prison. Miho made clear she could leave whenever she wanted, but a sanctuary she wasn't ready to abandon. Dr. Yoon visited daily for the first week, monitoring the pneumonia's retreat, checking that Sienna was eating properly, resting adequately. By day 5, the doctor pronounced her significantly improved but still requiring rest and proper nutrition for at least another 2 weeks. Miho took this pronouncement as law. Sienna discovered his protectiveness had layers. He didn't hover, gave her space, respected her privacy, but his care was evident in 1,000 small ways. Mrs. Park always had her favorite tea ready. The library acquired new books that matched Sienna's interests. The guest room became stocked with everything she might need. Comfortable clothes in her exact size, toiletries she preferred, even a weighted blanket when she mentioned having trouble sleeping. How did you know I liked lavender lotion? She asked Mrs. Park one morning. The housekeeper smiled knowingly. Mr. Kong pays attention. He did. Sienna was starting to notice that about him. The way he catalogued details, remembered preferences, anticipated needs before they were voiced. It should have felt invasive. Instead, it felt like being seen for the first time in her life. Miho himself remained a study in contrasts. During the day he was often gone. Business meetings, he'd say vaguely, though Sienna was beginning to understand that business meant things she probably shouldn't know about. But evenings he was present. They'd have dinner together in the penthouse's formal dining room, conversation flowing surprisingly easily between them. He asked about her life before Brandon, seemed genuinely interested in her work as a paralegal, her love of classic films, her complicated relationship with her estranged mother. She asked about Korea, about his family, about the tattoos that marked his skin. This one, he said on night 6, rolling up his sleeve to show her the script on his inner forearm, is my sister's name. Minji. I got it the day after her funeral. Sienna traced the elegant Korean characters with her eyes, not quite touching. And the others? Different meanings. My family name here. He touched his neck. A promise I made to my father here. His other forearm. And this? He showed her his ribs where more script disappeared under his shirt. This is a reminder. Of what? His smile was dark. That mercy without strength is meaningless. That protection requires power. That sometimes you have to be the monster to keep the monsters away. The words should have frightened her. Instead they made a strange kind of sense. On night 7 everything changed. The past resurfaces. Sienna was reading in the library when raised voices erupted from Miho's office down the hall. Not angry, urgent. Concerned. She moved to the doorway instinctively, drawn by the tension in those voices. Miho stood at his desk, phone pressed to his ear, his expression carved from ice. Juno was there too, along with 2 other men she'd seen around the penthouse. Security she'd assumed. When? Miho asked, his voice deadly calm. Pause. I see. And they're certain it's connected to her. Her. Sienna's blood ran cold. Contain it. I don't care what it costs. And Juno. Miho's eyes flicked toward the doorway, landing on Sienna with unerring accuracy. Even knowing she shouldn't be listening, she couldn't make herself move. Find out who leaked the information. I want names by morning. He ended the call, but his gaze stayed locked on Sienna. Come in. Close the door. She obeyed, her heart hammering. The other men filed out silently, leaving them alone. Brandon's family, Miho said without preamble. They've hired a private investigator. The world tilted. What? Why? They don't believe the suicide ruling. His mother especially, she's convinced someone killed him, convinced there's more to the story. He moved around the desk, closing the distance between them. The PI has been asking questions. About Brandon's girlfriend. About where she went after he died. But Detective Chin did an excellent job covering the official trail. But Brandon's mother is wealthy, connected, and motivated. She's offering a substantial reward for information leading to you. Sienna sank into the nearest chair, legs suddenly unreliable. So I have to run again. Disappear somewhere else. No. The word was absolute. You're not running anywhere. But if they find me. They won't. Miho crouched in front of her chair, bringing his face level with hers. Sienna, listen to me. I have resources Brandon's family can't imagine. I have people who can make sure that PI finds nothing, learns nothing, reports back that the trail went cold. You can't just make this disappear. Watch me. His hands came up to frame her face, thumbs brushing her cheekbones with devastating gentleness. I told you that you're under my protection. That means something in my world. That means I don't let people hurt what's mine. What's mine? The possessiveness should have alarmed her. Instead, warmth bloomed in her chest. What if I bring more trouble? She whispered. What if protecting me costs you? Let me worry about costs. He held her gaze. You worry about healing. About getting stronger. About believing that you deserve to be safe and cared for. His voice roughened. Can you do that? Can you trust me to handle this? She searched his face, the intensity in those dark eyes, the fierce determination, the protective fury barely leashed, and made a choice. Yes, she breathed. I trust you. Something shifted in his expression. Relief maybe, or satisfaction. His forehead dropped to rest against hers, and they stayed like that for a long moment, breathing each other's air. Gamawo, he murmured. Thank you. What does that mean? Thank you. He pulled back slightly, offering a small smile. I'm teaching you Korean apparently. By osmosis. Despite everything, she laughed. Teach me more. Annyeonghaseyo. Oh. Jaljaneo? How are you? Nanun Gwenshinha. I'm fine. His thumb traced her cheekbone again. Niamuyepioyo. You're beautiful. The last phrase was spoken so quietly she almost missed it. Heat flooded her face. Miho. I know. He stood abruptly, putting distance between them as if proximity was dangerous. Too soon. Too complicated. You're here because you need safety, not because He stopped himself. I'll handle the PI situation. You don't need to worry about it. But Sienna was worrying about something else entirely now. About the way her pulse had jumped when he called her beautiful. About the disappointment she'd felt when he'd pulled away. About the fact that somewhere in the past week, Miho had stopped being just her protector and started becoming something more. Cross-cultural connection. The next morning, Sienna woke to find Mrs. Park in her room with an unusual request. Mr. Kong asked if you'd join him in the kitchen, the housekeeper said, her eyes twinkling. He's attempting to cook breakfast. It's an event. Intrigued, Sienna followed Mrs. Park to the penthouse's massive kitchen. A space of marble counters and professional-grade appliances that looked barely used. Miho stood at the stove, sleeves rolled up, hair slightly disheveled, focused intently on a pan. He looked different like this. Less crime lord, more human. You cook? Sienna asked from the doorway. He glanced up and his smile was almost boyish. Poorly. But I'm making gyronmari rolled omelette. My taught me before. He trailed off, something sad flickering across his face. Before she passed. Can I help? You can watch and judge my technique. He gestured to a bar stool at the kitchen island. Mrs. Park usually saves me from culinary disasters, but I sent her away. Wanted to do this myself. Why? Because you've been eating food others prepare for you. Thought you might like to see that I'm capable of basic survival skills. He poured beaten eggs into the hot pan. Also, my therapist says cooking is therapeutic. Something about mindfulness and control. You have a therapist? Weekly sessions for 5 years. Mandatory after Minji died. He began rolling the egg with practiced movements. My father insisted. Said I'd become too dangerous without someone to help me process. The casual admission of therapy surprised her. In her experience, men like Miho, powerful, in control, operating in violent worlds, didn't admit to needing help. That's really healthy actually, she said. Healthy and necessary are different things. He plated the omelette, cutting it into neat slices. I needed help. Still do probably. There's no shame in that. He brought the plate to her, along with chopsticks and a small dish of soy sauce. Try it. Sienna picked up a piece with the chopsticks. She'd learned to use them properly during college and took a bite. The omelet was perfectly seasoned, fluffy and savory and genuinely delicious. "This is amazing," she said honestly. Pride flickered across his face. "Really? Really? Your mother taught you well." "She taught me many things." He leaned against the counter, watching her eat with an expression that was almost tender. How to cook, how to honor family, how to protect what matters. He paused. "She would have liked you." The comment landed in Sienna's chest like a stone dropped in still water, creating ripples. "Because I need protecting? Because you're strong." She valued strength above everything else. Not physical strength, Yongji. Courage. The kind that lets you survive what should break you. His eyes held hers. "You have that, Sienna. You survived Brandon. Survived weeks of running. Survived collapsing in a ballroom full of strangers and trusting one of them to catch you. I didn't have much choice in that last part." "You did." His voice was certain. "You could have pushed me away in the car. Could have refused medical help. Could have left the next morning. But you stayed. You trusted. That takes courage." Sienna set down her chopsticks, suddenly unable to eat under the weight of his regard. Or desperation. Courage and desperation often look the same. He moved closer, not quite touching but near enough that she felt his body heat. "The difference is what you do with the safety once you have it. Whether you use it to heal and grow stronger or whether you stay small and afraid." "And what am I doing?" "Getting stronger every day." His hand came up, hovering near her face before dropping back to his side. "I see it. The way you hold yourself taller now. The way you laugh more easily. The way you're starting to believe you deserve good things." "Do I?" The question escaped before she could stop it. "Deserve good things?" "Gyuri." "Yes." He switched to Korean then back. "Everyone deserves safety, care, the chance to heal. You most of all." The intensity in his voice made her breath catch. This felt like more than protectiveness. More than obligation to his sister's memory. This felt like something neither of them was ready to name. "Teach me more Korean," she said, needing to break the tension. "I want to understand when you switch languages." Relief flickered across his face, grateful she suspected that she'd given them an out. "All right. What do you want to learn?" "Something useful. Something I can actually use." He thought for a moment then smiled. "Nanun Guanchin Heo." "Okay. Important phrase. You'll hear me say it a lot." "Why?" "Because people in my organization worry. This tells them I'm fine even when I'm not." She repeated the phrase carefully, stumbling over the pronunciation. He corrected her gently, patiently until she got it right. "Good. Now, Nanu Naputa." "I'm hurt." "That's darker. But necessary. If something happens, if you need help, you need to be able to say it." His expression was serious now. "I need to know you can tell me when you're hurting, Sienna. Physically or otherwise." The subtext was clear. He'd seen how she hid pain, how she minimized her own suffering. He wanted her to stop. "Nanu Naputa," she repeated quietly. "Naekato vayulke." "I'll help you." His response was immediate, instinctive. "That's what I'll say. That's my promise." They stood there in the kitchen, the morning sun streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, teaching each other the language of vulnerability and care. And Sienna realized with startling clarity, she was falling for him. For this dangerous, complicated, surprisingly gentle man who cooked omelets and went to therapy and looked at her like she was something precious instead of broken. God help her, she was falling hard. The real world intrudes. That afternoon, while Miho was in his office handling business, Sienna received an unexpected visitor. Detective Marcus Chin. Mrs. Park showed him into the library with obvious reluctance. "Mr. Kong doesn't know you're here," she said quietly. "Should I inform him?" "Not yet." Chen's voice was tired. He looked at two, circles under his eyes, suit rumpled, the bearing of a man carrying too much weight. "I just need 10 minutes with Ms. Hayes." After Mrs. Park left, Chin settled into the armchair across from Sienna's. He studied her for a long moment, taking in her improved appearance, the comfortable clothes, the healthy color in her face. "You look better," he said finally. "Much better than the last time I saw you." "Detective Chin." Sienna's voice came out steadier than she felt. "What are you doing here?" "My job. Making sure you're okay." He leaned forward, elbows on knees. "Sienna, do you understand who Kong Miho is? What he does?" I have some idea. Do you? Because he's not just some wealthy businessman who happens to have questionable associates. He runs one of the most powerful Korean organized crime syndicates in North America. Loan sharking, protection rackets, smuggling, he's got his fingers in everything. Sienna kept her expression neutral, though her heart was racing. He's been kind to me. I'm sure he has. Men like Miho are experts at appearing kind when it serves them. Chen's voice gentled. I'm not saying he's a monster. By all accounts, he's actually one of the better ones. Operates by a code, doesn't deal in drugs or human trafficking, takes care of his people. But he's still dangerous, Sienna. And you being here, in his home, under his protection, that makes you part of his world now. Maybe that's better than being alone. Is it? Because Brandon's family has a PI sniffing around. If that investigator connects you to Miho, if they realize you're being sheltered by a crime lord, the questions are going to get a lot more complicated. Miho said he'd handle it. I'm sure he will. That's what worries me. Chin ran a hand through his hair. Look, I did what I did because Brandon was going to kill you. No regrets there. But I made you disappear to protect you from legal complications, not to push you into the arms of organized crime. He's not. Sienna stopped, recognizing the defensive note in her voice. He's helping me. That's all. For now. But men like Miho don't help without expecting something in return eventually. Chen's eyes were sad. I'm not telling you to leave. I'm telling you to be careful. To keep your eyes open. To have an exit strategy if things go sideways. Why do you care? Because I killed for you. The blunt honesty made Sienna flinch. That means something to me. Means I'm responsible for what happens to you next. And if Miho hurts you, if this protection turns into something else. He stood, pulling a card from his pocket and setting it on the table between them. My personal number. Not the precinct line. You call me day or night if you need out. No questions, no judgment. Just help. He moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth. I did some asking around about Miho. He's had that penthouse for 7 years. Never brought anyone there. No girlfriends, no casual hookups, nothing. His people say it's his sanctuary. The fact that he let you in? That means something. What does it mean? Chen's smile was tired. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Just be careful, Sienna. Men who live in the dark can sometimes forget how to exist in the light. After he left, Sienna sat alone in the library, turning Chen's card over in her hands. The detective's warnings echoed in her mind. Men like Miho don't help without expecting something in return. But what did Miho want from her? What was she to him beyond a second chance to save his sister? Sienna. She looked up to find Miho in the doorway, his expression concerned. Mrs. Park said you had a visitor. Detective Chin. He wanted to check on me. And warn you about me? Miho's voice was carefully neutral. I'm not offended. It's what a good cop would do. He said you're dangerous. I am. The admission was so blunt, so honest that Sienna didn't know how to respond. Miho moved into the room, settling into the chair Chin had vacated. I'm dangerous to people who threaten what's mine. To people who hurt the innocent. To anyone who thinks they can operate in my territory without consequences. His eyes met hers. But I'm not dangerous to you, Sienna. I never will be. How can you promise that? Because you're the first good thing in my life in 7 years. Because when I look at you, I don't see weakness to exploit. I see strength to protect. Because... He stopped, jaw clenching as if holding back words. Because you matter to me. More than I expected. More than I probably should admit. The air between them felt charged, electric. Chin said you've never brought anyone here before, Sienna said quietly. That this penthouse is your sanctuary. It is. It was. Miho's gaze was intense. And then you fainted in my arms and everything changed. You changed it just by being here, by trusting me, by letting me help you heal. I don't understand. Neither do I. His laugh was self-deprecating. I've spent 7 years building walls, keeping people at distance, never letting anyone close enough to matter. And then you, he shook his head. You walked into my world broken and afraid and somehow made me want to tear down every wall I've built. Sienna's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it. Miho. I'm not asking you for anything, he said quickly. I know it's too soon. I know you're still healing. I know I'm the last person you should. He stopped himself. I just needed you to understand. You're not here out of obligation. You're here because I want you here. Because having you in my space, in my life, makes me remember what it feels like to care about something beyond power and territory. She should have been frightened by the intensity of his confession. Should have remembered Chen's warnings, kept her distance, protected her heart. Instead, she found herself standing, crossing the space between them, reaching for his hand. I'm falling for you, she said simply. I know it's probably stupid. I know it's too fast and you're too dangerous and this is too complicated. But I can't help it. When I'm with you I feel safe. I feel seen. I feel like I matter. His hand closed around hers, gripped tight enough to hurt. Niamu yepioyo, he murmured. So beautiful. So brave. So impossibly, dangerously perfect. I'm not perfect. To me you are. He stood, closing the last distance between them, his free hand coming up to cup her face. And that terrifies me. Because perfect things in my world get destroyed. Get used as weapons. Get taken away. Then don't let me be taken. Sienna's voice was steady despite her racing heart. Protect me the way you promised. Keep me safe. And let me, she stopped, gathering courage. Let me care about you too. Let me see past the danger to the man who makes omelets and goes to therapy and honors his mother's memory. Sienna. Naiga dawa jalj, she said, using the phrase he taught her that morning. I'll help you. That's my promise. Something broke in his expression. He made a sound, half groan, half surrender, and pulled her into his arms. This time there was no distance between them. His body was solid and warm against hers, his heart hammering as fast as her own. She felt his face press into her hair, felt his breath shudder out in something that might have been relief or joy or both. Gamawo, he whispered. Thank you. Thank you for trusting me. For staying. For seeing me. They stood like that for a long time, holding each other in the afternoon light, two broken people beginning to believe they might heal each other. Escalation. The price of protection when walls start crumbling. The next 2 weeks passed in a strange, wonderful limbo. Sienna's body continued healing. The last traces of pneumonia vanished, her ribs stopped aching, the bruises faded to yellow-green before disappearing entirely. Dr. Yoon pronounced her fully recovered, with instructions to continue resting and eating well. But something else was healing too. Something less tangible but infinitely more important. She and Miho fell into a rhythm. Morning coffee together before he left for business. Lunch when he returned. Evenings spent in the library or watching films or simply talking. About everything and nothing, about pasts that haunted them and futures they were afraid to imagine. He taught her more Korean. She taught him to laugh more freely. They orbited each other with careful tenderness, both afraid to push too hard, too fast. But the tension was building. Every accidental touch lingered. Every shared glance held weight. Every moment alone together felt like standing at a cliff's edge, exhilarating and terrifying. It was Juno who finally forced the issue. Hyungnim, he said one evening, catching Miho in his office while Sienna was reading in the library. We need to talk about the woman. Miho's expression went cold. Her name is Sienna. Fine. Sienna. Juno's voice was strained. It's been 3 weeks. When is she leaving? She's not. Silence. Then, what do you mean she's not? I mean she's staying. Here. With me. Permanently if she wants. Miho's tone left no room for argument. And before you say anything, yes, I know what that means. Yes, I understand the implications. Yes, I'm prepared to deal with the consequences. Hyungnim, you're making her a target. She was already a target. Now she's a protected target. Miho stood pacing to the window. Brandon's family gave up the search last week. The PI reported the trail went cold. Detective Chin has been reassigned to a different division. The immediate threats are neutralized. The immediate threats, Juno repeated. But what about future ones? What about rivals who'll see her as leverage? What about my happiness? The question was quiet but fierce. Do I not deserve that, Juno? After 7 years of living in the dark, am I not allowed one good thing? Juno's expression softened. Of course you deserve happiness, Hyungnim. But at what cost to her? If someone goes after Sienna to get to you, then I'll destroy them. Simple. Absolute. Completely. No mercy. No hesitation. And if she can't live with that, if she sees what you're capable of, Anne, then I'll let her go. Miho's voice cracked slightly. If Sienna ever wants to leave, I won't stop her. But until then she stays. Under my protection. In my home. In my life. Juno studied him for a long moment. Then surprisingly he smiled. You're in love with her. Miho didn't deny it. Terrifyingly so. Does she know? Probably. I'm not subtle. Miho returned to his desk, sinking into the chair. But I haven't said it. Haven't pushed. She's still healing, still figuring out who she is beyond survival. I can wait. Can you though? Juno's voice was gentle. Because the way you look at her, Hyungnim, everyone sees it. Your men. Mrs. Park. Me. If we see it, enemies will too eventually. Let them. Miho's smile was cold, dangerous. Let them see that I have something worth protecting. And let them understand what will happen if they try to touch her. Unknown to both men, Sienna stood just outside the office door, having come to ask Miho about dinner plans. She'd heard everything. You're in love with her. Terrifyingly so. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She should leave, should pretend she hadn't heard, should give Miho the space to tell her in his own time. Instead she pushed open the door. Both men looked up, surprise flickering across their faces. Sienna. Miho stood quickly. How long have you been? Long enough. She looked at Juno. Could you give us a minute? Juno glanced at Miho, who nodded. After he left, Sienna closed the door and leaned against it, gathering her courage. You're in love with me, she said. Not a question. Miho's expression was raw, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. Yes. And you think that makes me a target? It does make you a target. So what's the solution? I leave? Go back to hiding, to running, to being alone? No. The word was fierce. Never. He ran a hand through his hair. I need you to understand what staying means, Sienna. It means being part of my world. It means accepting that I do things most people would consider evil. It means knowing that people might try to hurt you to hurt me. And it means, she continued, moving toward him, that I have the protection of one of the most powerful men in New York. That I'm not alone anymore. That someone gives a damn if I live or die. She stopped in front of him. I heard what you told Juno. That you'd destroy anyone who came after me. That I make you happy. That you've been waiting in the dark for 7 years. You heard all that? Every word. She reached up, cupping his face in her hands. And here's what you need to hear from me. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not afraid of your world. I'm not afraid of being a target. The only thing I'm afraid of is losing this, losing you, because we're too scared to reach for what we both want. His hands came up to cover hers. What do we both want? Each other. Simple. True. I'm falling for you, Miho. Actually, I've already fallen. And I know it's fast and it's intense and it's probably crazy considering how we met. He kissed her. Not tentatively. Not carefully. But with all the passion and need and desperate love he'd been holding back for weeks. Sienna melted into him, her hands sliding into his hair, pulling him closer. He tasted like coffee and mint and something uniquely him. His arms banded around her waist, lifting her against him as if he couldn't stand even an inch of distance. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Miho pressed his forehead to hers. Sarangi, he whispered. I love you. God help me, I love you so much it terrifies me. Then let's be terrified together. She kissed him again, softer this time. Because I love you too, Miho. And I'm choosing to stay. Choosing you. Choosing this. His smile was brilliant, transforming his usually severe face into something beautiful. You're sure? Because once you say yes, once you're mine, I won't let you go easily. Good. He traced the tattoos on his neck. Because I don't want easy. I want you. Nay Sarung, he murmured against her lips. My love. My brave, beautiful Sarung. They stayed like that, wrapped in each other, until Mrs. Park's discreet knock reminded them that dinner was ready and the household was pretending very hard not to notice what was happening in the office. Claiming. That night changed everything. Miho didn't hide their relationship. If anything, he claimed it publicly, proudly. When his lieutenants came for their weekly meeting the next day, he introduced Sienna as Nae Yeo-injin, my girlfriend, with a possessive pride that made her blush and made his men exchange knowing glances. Anyone who harms her answers to me, Miho said quietly. Personally. Make sure that message spreads. Word traveled fast in his organization. By the end of the week, everyone in Manhattan's Korean underworld knew. Kong Miho had a woman. An American woman. A woman he loved enough to kill for. The knowledge was both shield and target. You're officially mine now, Miho told her one evening as they stood on his balcony, overlooking the glittering city. How does it feel? Terrifying, Sienna admitted, leaning into his chest as his arms came around her. Wonderful. Right. Good. He kissed the top of her head. Because I need you to know something. I need you to know what being with me really means. I know you're in the Korean mob. Not just in it. I run it. The Kong organization. My grandfather started it 60 years ago when he emigrated from Busan. My father built it into an empire. And when he died 5 years ago, I took over. His voice was matter-of-fact. We control territory from Manhattan to Jersey City. Protection, gambling, certain imports. We don't deal drugs. Don't traffic people. Don't hurt civilians. But we're not saints either, Sienna. I know. Do you know that I've killed people? That I've ordered deaths? That my hands are covered in blood I can never wash away? She turned in his arms to face him. I know that you're dangerous. I know you've done things I probably can't imagine. But I also know that you caught me when I fell. That you protected me when I had no one. That you make me feel safe and seen and loved for the first time in my life. She touched his face. I don't need you to be perfect, Miho. I just need you to be honest with me. Always. Then hear this truth. His voice was rough. I love you more than I've ever loved anything. More than power. More than the organization. More than my own life. And that makes you the most valuable thing in my world. Which also makes you the most vulnerable. If my enemies ever figure out how much you mean to me, then you'll protect me. The way you promised. To my last breath. The vow was absolute. But Sienna, I need you to promise me something too. Promise me that if this ever becomes too much, if you can't handle my world, if you want out, you'll tell me. You let me help you leave safely. You won't just run. The fact that he'd give her that option, that freedom, made her love him even more. I promise, she whispered. But I'm not going anywhere. You're stuck with me. His smile was pure joy. Joy, good. Because I'm very selfish with things I love. They made love that night for the first time, in Miho's massive bed with Manhattan's lights glittering beyond floor-to-ceiling windows. He was tender and fierce by turns, reverent in his touch, whispering Korean endearments against her skin that she was learning to understand. Yepuyo. Beautiful. Nay sarung. My love. Nay yoja. My woman. Afterward, wrapped in silk sheets with Miho's arms around her, Sienna felt something she'd never expected to feel again. Complete. Safe. Home. I never thought I'd have this, Miho murmured into her hair. Never thought I deserved it. You do. We both do. Promise me something else. His arms tightened. Promise me that no matter what happens, you'll remember this moment. This feeling. The fact that we chose each other despite everything. The request sent a chill down her spine. Why does that sound like foreshadowing? Because I know my world, Sarung. And I know that happiness like this always comes with a price. He pulled her closer as if he could protect her through proximity alone. I just need to know that whatever that price is, we'll pay it together. Together, she agreed, pushing away the sense of foreboding. Always together. But in the back of her mind, a voice whispered, nothing this good lasts forever. She just didn't know how soon that truth would be tested. The rival's interest. 3 days later, the first real threat emerged. Sienna was shopping with Mrs. Park in Koreatown, her first real outing since moving into the penthouse. Miho had assigned 2 bodyguards, discreet but present, and she was reveling in the normalcy of it, browsing Korean skincare products, tasting tteokbokki from a street vendor, feeling like a regular person for the first time in months. She'd just purchased some items from a Korean grocery when she felt it, the weight of being watched. Years of living with Brandon had honed her instincts. She knew the difference between casual attention and predatory focus. Someone was staring. Sienna turned slowly, scanning the crowded street. There, across the road, leaning against a storefront, a man in a dark jacket watched her with undisguised interest. Not threatening exactly, but not friendly either. Her bodyguards noticed immediately. One spoke quietly into his sleeve while the other moved closer to Sienna, his hand inside his jacket. The man smiled, gave a small wave and disappeared into the crowd. "We need to leave," the bodyguard said urgently. "Now." They rushed back to the SUV. The drive to the penthouse took 15 minutes, but it felt like hours. Sienna's hands were shaking by the time they arrived. Miho was waiting in the foyer, Juno beside him. Both men looked grim. "Tell me exactly what happened," Miho said, his voice calm but his eyes hard as stone. After Sienna described the man, Juno pulled up a photo on his phone. "Is this him?" "It was." Sienna nodded. "Sherbal," Miho cursed in Korean. "Park Taejin. He works for the Beck organization." "Who are they?" Sienna asked. "Our primary rivals." Miho's jaw clenched. "They control territory in Queens and parts of Brooklyn. We've had an uneasy peace for 2 years, but—" He stopped, looking at Juno. "This is a message." "A message saying what?" "That they know about you. That they're watching. That they could reach you if they wanted to." Miho pulled her into his arms, his body rigid with tension. "This is what I was afraid of. This is the price I warned you about. What do we do? You stay here. No more outings until I handle this." He pulled back to look at her, his expression fierce. "And I will handle it, Sarang. I promise you that." "How?" His smile was cold, dangerous. "By reminding the Beck organization why we've had peace for 2 years. By making it very clear what happens to people who threaten what's mine." He kissed her hard, possessively, then turned to Juno. "Call a meeting. Full council. Tonight. We're sending a message of our own." As the men strode toward Miho's office, already deep in rapid Korean conversation, Sienna sank onto the foyer bench with shaking hands. This was real now. The danger Miho had warned about. The price of loving a man who lived in shadows. She should have been terrified. Should have been reconsidering her choice to stay. Instead, she felt a strange kind of resolve settling in her chest. She'd survived Brandon's abuse. She'd survived weeks of running. She'd survived pneumonia and fear and collapse. She could survive this too. And more importantly, she would stand beside Miho while he protected them both. Because that's what love meant in his world. Not running when things got dangerous, but holding on tighter and trusting that together, you were stronger than any threat. Together, she reminded herself. We'll face this together. Crisis. When darkness comes, seeing a council of war. That night, Miho's penthouse transformed into a war room. Sienna watched from the library doorway as powerful men gathered in his office. 12 in total, all Korean, all dressed in dark suits that screamed money and danger. These were Miho's lieutenants, his inner circle, the men who ran his empire's various operations. Juno noticed her watching and approached quietly. "You shouldn't see this, Ms. Hayes. It's better if I pretend I don't know what's happening?" She met his eyes. "I'm the reason for this meeting, Juno. I deserve to understand what's being decided." He studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "You're stronger than I gave you credit for. Hyungnim chose well." He paused. "Do you speak any Korean?" "A little. Miho's been teaching me." "Then stay. But don't interrupt unless Hyungnim addresses you directly. The men are traditional. They don't appreciate women in business discussions. Even when the discussion is about protecting said woman?" Juno's smile was rueful. "Especially then." The meeting began in Korean, but Miho switched to English periodically, either for Sienna's benefit or because certain terms worked better in English. She caught enough to understand. The Beck organization was making moves. Testing boundaries. Park Taejin following Sienna was a deliberate provocation. "They want to see how we respond," one of the older lieutenants said in heavily accented English. "If we show weakness, they push harder." "We show strength," Miho said coldly. "Overwhelming strength." "Hyungnim, with respect," another man began. "Is one woman worth breaking our peace?" The room went dead silent. Miho stood slowly, his expression carved from ice. When he spoke, his voice was soft, but everyone flinched. "That woman is mine. She is under my protection. And more importantly," his eyes swept the room, landing on each man in turn. "She's family. The moment you question whether she's worth protecting is the moment you question my judgment." "Is that what you're doing, Minsik?" The man who'd spoken went pale. "No, Hyungnim. My apologies. I spoke without thinking. Then think. Miho's voice was still soft, still dangerous. Because I'm going to say this once and you will all remember it. Sienna Hayes is off limits. Anyone who harms her, anyone who tries to use her against me, will face consequences that make death look merciful. That includes allies who question her value. He let that sink in, then continued. Now, the Beck organization has made their play. How do we respond? The meeting continued for 2 hours. Sienna listened as they discussed strategy, territory, leverage points. It was fascinating and terrifying in equal measure. These men spoke casually about violence, about sending messages written in blood, about making examples. This was Miho's world. This was the reality she'd chosen. Finally, a plan emerged. They would meet with the Beck organization. Neutral territory. A show of strength without open warfare. And they would make clear that Sienna was untouchable. And if they refused to accept that? Juno asked. Miho's smile was terrifying. Then we remind them why my father chose me as his heir. Why I've held this territory for 5 years against everyone who tried to take it. Why they should fear me more than they want to hurt her. The men nodded, understanding the implicit threat. As the meeting broke up, Miho caught Sienna's eye across the room. The fierce protectiveness in his gaze made her breath catch. She understood now fully what Juno had said earlier. You're stronger than I gave you credit for. Because choosing this life, loving Miho despite his darkness, that took a kind of strength most people would never understand. But she had it. She'd learned it surviving Brandon, refined it during her weeks of running, and now she was using it to stand beside a man who would burn the world to keep her safe. Together, she thought again. We're stronger together. Detective Chen's warning. The next morning brought an unexpected complication. Detective Marcus Chen returned. This time he didn't look tired. He looked grim, determined, and deeply worried. We need to talk, he told Sienna, his eyes flicking to the bodyguards stationed discreetly around the penthouse. Privately. They ended up in the library again, the door closed. Chin paced like a caged animal before finally settling into a chair. I shouldn't be here, he said. My captain would have my badge if he knew I was still in contact with you. But I have to warn you, something big is happening. I know. The Beck organization. Not just them. Chin leaned forward. Sienna, Brandon's mother, has escalated. The PI didn't find anything, but she's not satisfied. She's now claiming you murdered her son and that NYPD covered it up. She's taking it to the FBI. The floor dropped out from under Sienna's world. What? She filed a formal complaint yesterday. Alleges corruption in my division, claims evidence was suppressed, demands a full investigation. Chen's voice was rough. They're going to look at everything. My arrest records, my case files, the suicide ruling. And when they do, they're going to find inconsistencies. Because you killed him. Because I saved your life. His correction was fierce. But that's not how it'll look. And if they connect you to Miho, if they realize you've been living with a known crime boss, they'll think I seduced a mobster to cover up my boyfriend's murder. Exactly. Chin ran both hands through his hair. Sienna, I'm probably going to lose my job over this. Maybe face charges. But you need to disappear again. Really disappear this time. Maybe leave the country. Because if the FBI gets hold of you, if they bring you in for questioning while you're connected to Miho, I'm not leaving him. The words came out firm, certain. Chin stared at her. Did you hear what I just said? The FBI. I heard you. And I'm not leaving. Sienna stood, moving to the window. Miho will handle this. He'll what? Make the FBI investigation disappear? Bribe federal agents? Kill Brandon's mother? Chen's voice rose. That's not how this works, Sienna. There are some problems even organized crime can't fix. Then I'll face them. I'll tell the truth. The truth? That I killed your boyfriend and you've been hiding with a mobster ever since. Chen's laugh was bitter. That truth will destroy both of us. The door opened. Miho stood there, his expression unreadable. Detective Chen. His voice was polite but cold. I wasn't aware you were visiting. I came to warn her. To tell her what she's facing because she chose you over common sense. I see. Miho moved into the room with predatory grace, positioning himself between Chin and Sienna. And your suggestion is that she run again? live in fear. My suggestion is that she survive. Something that gets harder the longer she stays in your world. Interesting. Miho's smile didn't reach his eyes. Because my understanding is that you're the one who put her in danger, detective. You're the one who killed her boyfriend and made her disappear. You're the one whose actions are now being investigated. So perhaps she's safer with me than she ever was with you. The two men faced off, tension crackling between them. Stop. Sienna stepped between them, one hand on each man's chest. Both of you. Chin, I appreciate the warning. Truly. But I'm not running. Miho, she turned to him. What can we do about the FBI investigation? His expression softened when he looked at her. Lawyers. The best money can buy. And information. He glanced at Chin. Detective, you said Brandon's mother filed the complaint. Who's her attorney? Jonathan Brenner. Former federal prosecutor, big name in white-collar defense. Ido Brenner. We have mutual acquaintances. Miho's smile turned calculating. Leave him to me. As for the FBI, I have friends there too. Not people I can order around, but people who owe favors. I'll call them in. You can't just, Chin started. Watch me. Miho's voice was absolute. I've been operating in this city for a decade, detective. I've built relationships, accumulated leverage, learned who can be influenced and how. Your captain at SVU? We play golf together. The 80 who'd prosecute this case? His daughter got into Yale because of a letter of recommendation I arranged. The FBI field office director? I once provided information that closed 3 major cases for him. Chin looked stunned. You're telling me you've corrupted half the justice system? Corrupted is such an ugly word. I prefer established mutually beneficial relationships. Miho's hand found Sienna's. The point is, detective, I have resources you can't imagine. And I will use all of them to protect Sienna and, by extension, to protect you. Because hurting you hurts her. Why would you help me? Because you saved her when I couldn't. Simple. Honest. That means something. So yes, Detective Chin, I'll help you keep your badge and your freedom. In return, you stop telling Sienna to run from me. Deal. Chin looked between them. Miho's fierce protectiveness, Sienna's stubborn determination, and slowly nodded. Deal. But Miho, if you ever hurt her, you'll kill me. Yes, I know. Get in line. Miho's voice was dry. Right now, there are at least 2 rival organizations and 1 federal investigation that want me dead. What's one more threat? Despite everything, Chin laughed. You're insane. Probably. But I'm insane about her, so it balances out. After Chin left, Sienna turned to Miho. Can you really make this FBI thing go away? I can try. But Sarung. He pulled her into his arms. Even if I can't, even if this gets worse, I need you to know. I won't let them take you. I won't let anyone hurt you. Not Brandon's family, not the FBI, not anyone. What if protecting me costs you everything? Then I'll consider it a fair trade. He kissed her forehead. You're worth more than empires, Sienna. Worth more than power or territory or any of it. I learned that the moment I caught you. She pressed her face against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Strong. Steady. We're going to get through this, she said. Not a question. A vow. Together, he agreed. Always together. The Beck meeting. The meeting with the Beck organization was scheduled for 3 days later at a neutral location. A private room in a Korean restaurant in Flushing that served both organizations. Miho didn't want Sienna there. They argued about it for hours. It's too dangerous, he insisted. If things go wrong, then you'll protect me. The way you always do. She crossed her arms. Miho, I can't hide every time there's a threat. That's not living. That's just surviving, and I'm done with surviving. Sarung. No. Listen to me. She moved closer, taking his hands. I understand you want to keep me safe. I love that about you. But I need you to understand something too. I'm not fragile anymore. I'm not the broken woman you caught in that ballroom. I've healed. I've gotten stronger. And part of that strength comes from standing beside you, not hiding behind you. He searched her face for a long moment. You're sure? Completely. Then you come. But you follow my lead. You don't speak unless I give you permission. And if I tell you to leave, I leave. I promise. The restaurant was closed for the meeting. Only key members from both organizations present. The Beck group arrived first. 6 men, led by a silver-haired patriarch named Beck Chulsu who looked like someone's grandfather but moved with lethal grace. Miho arrived with 4 men, Juno, 2 senior lieutenants and surprisingly Sienna. The Beck group's eyes widened when they saw her. A woman at a business meeting was unexpected. A woman who was clearly the subject of said meeting was unprecedented. Beck Chulsu studied Sienna with undisguised interest. Then he smiled and it wasn't friendly. "So this is the woman causing all the fuss," he said in lightly accented English. "She's pretty, Mihoya. I understand the attraction. Watch your tone, Hyung." Miho's voice was respectful but firm. "Sienna is under my protection. My woman. My family." Family. Beck Chulsu said the word like he was tasting something unpleasant. "You claim an outsider as family? An American woman with no understanding of our ways." "I claim the woman I love. That makes her family." Miho's hand rested on the small of Sienna's back. "And anyone who harms her will answer to me. I believe I made that clear." Yes. Very clear." Beck waved a hand dismissively. "But Mihoya, you put me in an awkward position. Your happiness versus our organization's interests." Park Taejin was simply gathering information. "By following my woman through Koreatown? By making her feel unsafe in our territory?" Miho's voice went cold. "That's not gathering information, Hyung. That's intimidation. And it stops now. Or what? You'll start a war over her. If necessary." The answer was immediate. "I've held this territory against stronger opponents than you, Hyung. Don't make me prove it again." The room went silent. Sienna could feel the tension coiling tighter, see the way hands moved toward weapons hidden in jackets. Then Beck Chulsu laughed. "You've changed, Mihoya. 5 years ago you wouldn't have risked so much for a woman. Your father would be proud, or disappointed. I can't decide which. My father taught me that loyalty is everything. That protecting what's yours is worth any price." Miho's eyes were hard. "Sienna is mine. That's not negotiable." "Very well." Beck stood, signaling his men to relax. "I respect your position, though I think you're a fool. But I will instruct my people to leave your woman alone. She is off limits." Relief flooded through Sienna, but Miho's expression didn't change. "And Park Taejin, the man who followed her, will be disciplined." Beck's smile was thin. "Appropriately. Thank you, Hyung." "Don't thank me yet. This protection comes with a price." Beck's eyes gleamed. "I want expansion rights into Midtown. The gambling dens you control on 35th Street. I want half." Sienna felt Miho's body go rigid behind her. "Those territories have been Kong family holdings for 20 years, Juno said, his voice strained. "And now they're the price for your Hyungnam's happiness." Beck looked at Miho. "What's it to be? Territory or the woman?" The choice was designed to humiliate. To force Miho to choose between power and love, to show weakness either way. But Miho surprised everyone. "Neither," he said calmly. "I'll give you something better. Exclusive import rights on the South Korean textile shipments coming through Jersey ports. Worth twice what the 35th Street operations bring in annually and no violence required." Beck's eyebrows rose. "The textile contracts? Your grandfather established those. And I'm willing to share them. For Sienna's safety." Miho's voice was firm. "That's my offer, Hyung. Take it or leave it. But understand, if you refuse and continue targeting my woman, I won't offer negotiations next time. I'll offer war." The older man considered this, clearly calculating value versus risk. Finally he nodded. "The textile contracts. Agreed. Your woman is safe from my organization. And from your allies? I'll spread the word. Anyone who touches her will answer to both our organizations." Beck extended his hand. "You're overpaying for security, Mihoya. But I suppose that's what love does, makes fools of smart men." Miho shook his hand. "Then I'm a fool." "Gladly." After the meeting ended and they were back in the SUV, Sienna finally spoke. "You just gave up your grandfather's legacy for me." "No. I traded one legacy for another." Miho pulled her close. "My grandfather built an empire on fear and violence. I'm building something different. An empire where the people I love are protected. Where happiness matters as much as power." He would have understood that. Would he? He loved my grandmother with the same intensity one love you. When she died, he almost destroyed everything he'd built. My father had to stop him. Miho's voice was soft. So yes, he would understand why I'd trade anything to keep you safe. Why I'd give up territories and contracts and pride. Because love is worth more than any of it. Sienna kissed him, tasting relief and gratitude and overwhelming love. Thank you. For choosing me. Surang, I chose you the moment I caught you. Everything since has just been me proving it. They held each other as the SUV carried them home, both believing the worst was over. Neither realized the real threat was just beginning. Climax. When everything beers, the FBI arrives. 2 days after the Beck meeting, federal agents came to the penthouse. Sienna was having coffee with Mrs. Park when the doorbell rang. Through the security monitor she saw them. 4 people in dark suits, FBI badges already out. Her blood turned to ice. Get Mr. Kong, she told Mrs. Park, her voice surprisingly steady. Now. Miho appeared within seconds, Juno at his side. He took one look at the monitor and his expression went cold, calculating. They have a warrant, Juno said, examining the documents being held up to the camera. For Sienna Hayes. Questioning related to Brandon Mitchell's death. Don't let them in yet. Miho pulled out his phone, dialing rapidly. I'm calling our lawyer. But the agents weren't patient. After 3 minutes, one of them, a severe-looking woman with sharp eyes, spoke into the camera. Ms. Hayes, we know you're in there. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. Your choice. Sienna looked at Miho. I have to talk to them. Not without representation. Miho, if I refuse it looks worse. Like I have something to hide. You do have something to hide, Detective Chin killing your boyfriend. His voice was harsh with fear, not anger. They're going to try to trap you to make you admit things that will hurt you and Chin. Then I'll be careful. She touched his face. Trust me. I survived Brandon. I can survive this. That's not the same and you know it. No, it's not. Because this time I have you. I have protection. I have resources. She managed a smile despite her racing heart. And I have the truth, I didn't kill Brandon. Someone saved me from him. That's all I have to say. After a tense conversation with the lawyer on the phone, who advised her to cooperate but sparingly, Sienna agreed to meet with the agents. Not at FBI offices, but in Miho's study with his lawyer present. The lead agent, Special Agent Catherine Walsh, didn't like these terms but she agreed. The interrogation lasted 3 hours. They asked about Brandon. About the abuse. About the night she'd ended up in the hospital. About Detective Chen's investigation. About the suicide ruling. Sienna answered carefully, truthfully where she could, with, I don't recall where she couldn't. The lawyer intervened frequently, refusing to let them push too hard. But then Walsh changed tactics. Ms. Hayes, you've been living with Kong Miho for over a month now. Is that correct? The lawyer's hand came down on the table. Agent Walsh, my client's living arrangements are irrelevant to Brandon Mitchell's death. Are they? Because it seems very convenient. Mr. Mitchell dies under suspicious circumstances, Ms. Hayes disappears, and then resurfaces in the home of one of New York's most powerful organized crime figures. Walsh leaned forward. That doesn't strike you as odd? I met Mr. Kong after Brandon's death. Weeks after. And how exactly did that meeting occur? Sienna remembered. The ballroom, the fainting, the bruises Miho had seen. She couldn't tell them that. Couldn't reveal how broken she'd been. I collapsed at an event where Mr. Kong was present. He helped me. Provided medical care. I've been recovering at his residence ever since. Recovering. Walsh's tone was skeptical. Or being hidden? Agent Walsh, the lawyer started. No, it's fine. Sienna met the agent's eyes. I was recovering from pneumonia, broken ribs, and severe malnutrition resulting from weeks of homelessness after leaving an abusive relationship. Mr. Kong provided medical treatment and a safe place to heal. There's nothing sinister about that. Except that Mr. Kong is a known associate of organized crime. Is he? Has he been convicted of anything? Sienna's voice was steady. Because from what I understand, Mr. Kong is a successful businessman with various legitimate enterprises. If you're suggesting something else, perhaps you should arrest him instead of harassing me. Walsh's eyes narrowed. You're very protective of him. He was kind to me when I had no one else. Yes, I'm protective. Kind enough to kill for you? Is that what happened, Ms. Hayes? Did you seduce Kong Miho into having Brandon Mitchell killed? The lawyer stood abruptly. We're done here. Agent Walsh, if you have evidence of a crime, charge my client. Otherwise, this interview is over. Walsh looked frustrated, but she stood too. Ms. Hayes, don't leave the city. We'll be in touch. After they left, Sienna collapsed into Miho's arms. He'd been waiting just outside, listening to every word through the security system. You did perfectly, he murmured into her hair. Sarang, you were amazing. They think I had Brandon killed. They think she couldn't finish the sentence. They think wrong. And we'll prove it. He pulled back to look at her. Sienna, I need you to trust me now. Really trust me. Because I'm going to do something you might not like, but it's the only way to protect you and Chin both. What are you going to do? His smile was cold, determined. I'm going to give the FBI exactly what they want. A confession. The sacrifice play. Absolutely not. Juno's voice was sharp. Hyungnim, you can't. I can and I will. Miho stood at his office window looking out at Manhattan. It's the only play that protects Sienna and Chin both. By confessing to a murder you didn't commit? I won't confess to murder. I'll confess to arranging Brandon Mitchell's suicide. To finding out he'd been abusing Sienna and deciding he needed to die. To providing the means and opportunity for him to choose death over facing consequences. Sienna, listening from the doorway, felt her world tilt. Miho, you can't do this. I can. I have the resources to make it believable. I have the motivation. A known crime boss protecting a woman he cares about. It's exactly the kind of thing they'd believe I'd do. But it's not true. No, it's not. But it gives them a story that satisfies their investigation without implicating Chin or making you an accomplice. He turned to face her. Sienna, if I don't do this, they'll keep digging. They'll find holes in Chin's story. They'll pressure you until you break. This way, I give them a villain they already think I am and I protect the people I love. What about your organization? Your empire? Everything you've built? Will survive. I have good lawyers. I'll claim I was protecting you from a known abuser, which is true. I'll argue that helping someone escape domestic violence isn't conspiracy to murder. The case will likely be pleaded down to something manageable. His voice softened. I might do some time, Sarang. But I'll survive it. And when I come back you'll be here. Safe. Free. That's worth any price. No. Sienna's voice shook. No, I won't let you do this. I won't let you sacrifice yourself for me. You don't have a choice. His words were gentle but firm. Sienna, I'm going to the FBI tomorrow. I'm going to tell them I learned about Brandon's abuse through my sources, that I decided to eliminate the threat, that I staged his suicide to protect you. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. Miho. Let me finish. He crossed to her, taking her hands. I need you to do something for me. When I'm gone, when I'm in custody or serving time or whatever happens, I need you to live. Really live. Not just survive, not just wait for me, but build the life you deserve. Go back to school if you want. Travel. Make friends. Be happy. I can't be happy without you. You can. You're stronger than you know. He pressed his forehead to hers. Sarang, you survived abuse and homelessness and pneumonia. You survived fainting in a ballroom and trusting a stranger. You'll survive this too. And when I come back, if you'll still have me, we'll build something even better. Sienna was sobbing now, great wrenching tears that shook her whole body. Please don't do this. Please don't leave me. I have to keep you safe. Keep Chin safe. To give you both a future. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. Sarangi, Sienna Hayes. More than life. More than freedom. More than anything. Sarangi, she whispered back. Don't go. Please don't go. But she could see in his eyes that his mind was made up. He was going to sacrifice himself for her. And there was nothing she could do to stop him. The truth emerges. That night, while Miho was in his office preparing his statement for the FBI, Sienna made a decision. He called Detective Chin. I need to see you, she said. Tonight. It's urgent. They met at a 24-hour diner in Queens, far from Manhattan's prying eyes. Chin looked exhausted, hunted. The FBI investigation was clearly taking its toll. What's wrong? He asked as soon as he sat down. Sienna told him about Miho's plan. About the confession he was planning to make. About his willingness to sacrifice everything to protect them both. Chen's face went pale. He can't do that. If he confesses to arranging Brandon's death, he goes to prison. I know. That's why I called you. She leaned forward. Chen, there has to be another way. Something we're not seeing. Some truth that satisfies the FBI without destroying either of you. There isn't. I killed Brandon. That's the truth. And the only way to hide it is. He stopped, realization dawning on his face. Wait. There might be something. What? Brandon had enemies. Not just you, other people he'd hurt. I know because I investigated him before Chen ran his hand through his hair. When I first met you in the hospital, I ran a full background check. Brandon Mitchell wasn't just an abusive boyfriend. He was a predator. At least 3 other women filed reports against him over the years. 2 dropped the charges after being threatened. 1 left the state. Sienna felt sick. She'd known Brandon was evil, but this. If we can find those women, Chen continued, if we can prove a pattern of escalating violence, then Brandon's suicide becomes believable. A man facing multiple accusations of abuse, knowing his crimes were about to be exposed, taking his own life to escape consequences. It would satisfy the FBI's investigation without anyone having to confess to murder. But those women, we can't ask them to come forward. We can't put them through that. We don't have to. I just need their statements, their reports. Proof that Brandon was worse than anyone knew. Chen pulled out his phone. I kept copies of everything. I didn't destroy evidence, Sienna. I just supplemented it. Made Brandon's death look self-inflicted. But the abuse history is all real, all documented. Hope flared in Sienna's chest. You think this will work? I think it gives us a chance. If I can present this to the FBI, show them Brandon was a predator who knew his time was up, they might close the investigation. He met her eyes. But Sienna, you have to convince Miho not to confess. If he talks before I can present this evidence, it's over. He's meeting with the FBI tomorrow morning. Then you have tonight to change his mind. Sienna returned to the penthouse to find Miho exactly where she'd left him. In his office, reviewing papers with the lawyer. They both looked up when she entered. Sarung, Miho started. I know how to fix this. She didn't give him time to argue, just launched into everything Chen had told her. Brandon's pattern of abuse, the other victims, the documented evidence that would support a genuine suicide ruling. Miho listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked at his lawyer. Can this work? If the evidence is as solid as Detective Chen claims? Yes. It gives the FBI a clean way to close the investigation without anyone going to prison. The lawyer's eyes gleamed. It's actually brilliant. The Bureau doesn't want a messy case about police corruption. They want closure. This gives them that. Then we use it. Miho's decision was immediate. Contact Chen. Tell him to present the evidence tomorrow before my scheduled meeting. If it works, I'll cancel my confession. And if it doesn't? Sienna asked. Then I follow through with my original plan. His voice was firm. But Sarung, either way, I'm not letting you face consequences for surviving abuse. That's non-negotiable. She wanted to argue, to insist that she wouldn't let him sacrifice himself. But she could see the determination in his eyes, the fierce protectiveness that defined everything he did. So instead she just held him. Let him hold her. And prayed that Chen's evidence would be enough. The resolution. The next morning, Detective Chen walked into FBI headquarters with a thick file and a story that was entirely true. Brandon Mitchell was a serial abuser. He'd hurt multiple women over the course of a decade. When Sienna Hayes had pressed charges, when Chen had started investigating thoroughly, Brandon had realized his pattern of violence was about to be exposed. He'd chosen death over disgrace. The suicide note, genuine, written in Brandon's hand, had confessed to hurting someone he loved. At the time, investigators had assumed it referred to Sienna. But Chen showed them it was more likely a reference to all his victims, a final moment of guilt before the end. Agent Walsh listened to the presentation with increasing interest. Then she made a few phone calls, verified some details, and finally nodded. This explains the inconsistencies, she said. Why Miss Hayes disappeared, she was traumatized and fleeing multiple threats. Why the suicide ruling was rushed. There was actually substantial evidence supporting it. Why you seemed protective of her, detective. She was a victim who needed help, not a suspect. So the investigation is closed? Chin asked carefully. Pending a few final verifications, yes. Brandon Mitchell's death was suicide. Miss Hayes is not a person of interest. And you? Walsh's eyes narrowed. You're off the hook, detective. Though I suggest you be more careful about following procedure in the future. Yes, ma'am. After Chin left the building, he called Sienna immediately. It worked. We're clear. The relief in her voice was palpable. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank Miho. If he'd gone through with that confession, it would have complicated everything. Chin paused. Sienna, be happy. You deserve it. I will be. We will be. That afternoon, Miho received official notice that the FBI investigation into Brandon Mitchell's death had been closed. No charges filed. No further questions. He found Sienna in the library and pulled her into his arms without a word. It's over, he murmured. You're safe. Really, truly safe. We're safe, she corrected. Both of us. Both of us, he agreed. They held each other for a long time, neither speaking, just existing in the knowledge that they'd survived. But Sienna knew this wasn't really the end. It was the beginning. The beginning of a life they'd fought for, earned through blood and fear and desperate love. And she couldn't wait to live it. Resolution. 6 months early spring in Manhattan. Spring came to New York with cherry blossoms in Central Park and warm breezes that finally felt like rebirth. Sienna stood on Miho's balcony. Their balcony now, she corrected herself, watching the city wake up. 6 months had passed since the FBI investigation closed. 6 months of healing and growing and building something real. So much had changed. She'd returned to school, enrolling in Columbia's social work program. If she was going to live in Miho's world, she'd decided she wanted to help the people who fell through its cracks. Abuse survivors, trafficking victims, people who needed advocates. Miho had been thrilled by the choice, even endowed a scholarship in her name. The penthouse had slowly become home. Her books on the shelves. Her clothes in the closet. Her coffee mug. The one that said law school survivor, even though she'd never finished her paralegal certification. Sitting next to Miho's every morning. She'd met his extended family. Aunts and uncles in Seoul who video called monthly, cousins in LA who treated her like she'd always been one of them. They'd been surprised by his choice of an American girlfriend, but Miho made clear she wasn't going anywhere. Slowly they'd accepted her. She'd even started learning Korean seriously, taking classes at a local community center. Miho loved listening to her practice, correcting her pronunciation with patient amusement. Your accent is terrible, he'd tease. Your English was probably worse when you first learned it, she'd shoot back. Probably. But I was 7. You're 28. Are you calling me old? Never. I'm calling you perfect exactly as you are. It had been 6 months of conversations like that. Of domesticity and laughter and slowly building a life together. But today was special. Today was the day they'd been planning for weeks. The gathering. By noon, the penthouse was filled with people. Miho's lieutenants and their families, Mrs. Park and the staff, Detective Chin, who'd become an unlikely friend after everything, even Dr. Yoon who'd monitored Sienna's recovery. Juno was there with his wife and 2 young children who immediately gravitated to the game console Miho had set up for the occasion. Several other families from the organization mingled, children running through the space that usually maintained such severe dignity. This is chaos, Miho muttered, though his eyes were fond as he watched a small girl in pigtails attempt to climb him like a tree. This is family, Sienna corrected, gently extracting the child and setting her back on her feet. And you love it. I love you. This, he gestured at the crowd, is tolerated because it makes you happy. She knew that wasn't entirely true. Miho had changed over the past 6 months too. The cold, isolated crime lord had softened, opened up, allowed people closer. He still ran his organization with iron control, but he'd also started focusing on legitimate businesses, on using his power to protect rather than just dominate. You're a good man, she told him quietly. I'm a man trying to be good. There's a difference. Not to me. He kissed her then, not caring that his entire organization was watching, that several children made exaggerated gagging sounds, that Mrs. Park smiled knowingly from across the room. When they pulled apart, Juno was clearing his throat loudly. Hyungnim, whenever you're done being disgustingly in love, we have a presentation. Presentation? Sienna looked confused. Miho smiled mysteriously. You'll see. The crowd gathered in the main living room. Juno stepped forward with a wrapped box, which he presented to Sienna with a formal bow. Ms. Hayes, or should I say Hyungnim Dake, he said, using the Korean term for a boss's wife. The organization has something for you. Sienna opened the box to find a deed. Not just any deed, a deed to a building in Hell's Kitchen. A building she recognized from her drives around the city. A beautiful brownstone she'd once mentioned she thought would make a perfect community center. What? She started. It's yours, Miho said. The organization bought it last month. We've been renovating it. It's going to be the Sienna Hayes Center for Domestic Violence Support. Counseling, legal aid, temporary housing, job training. Everything you said survivors need in one place. Tears streamed down her face. You did this for me? We did it for you, Juno corrected. Because you've made Hyungnim happy. Because you've shown us that we can be more than just an organization, we can be a force for good. And because, his voice softened, we're family. And family takes care of each other. Sienna couldn't speak. Could only clutch the deed and cry while Miho's arms came around her. The grand opening is in 2 months, he murmured. And I've hired a full staff. You'll oversee operations, but you won't have to run it alone. You can still finish school, still have a life. But this is your dream made real, Sarung. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you all. The celebration continued into the evening. At some point, someone started karaoke. Juno, surprisingly, had a beautiful singing voice. The children crashed from sugar highs and were carried to spare bedrooms. The adults settled into smaller groups, sharing stories and soju. Sienna found herself on the balcony with Detective Chin, both of them nursing drinks and watching the city lights. You look happy, Chin said. Really happy. I am. Strange. 6 months ago I was living in a shelter working under the table one step from the streets. Now I have a home, a partner, a purpose. It doesn't feel real sometimes. It's real. You earned it. Chin took a sip of his drink. I know I was skeptical about Miho at first. But he's been good for you. Good to you. That matters. It does. Brandon would have hated this, Chin said quietly. Seeing you thriving, surrounded by people who love you. Part of me wishes he could see it. Wishes he could know that you won. Sienna considered that. Once, the thought of Brandon would have made her freeze, made her relive trauma, made her afraid. Now she just felt pity. Pity for a man so broken he could only express himself through violence. Pity for all the people he'd hurt. Pity that he'd never known what real love felt like. I don't think about him much anymore, she admitted. The scars are there. Sometimes I still flinch at raised voices, still have nightmares occasionally. But he doesn't own me anymore. I'm free. That's good. That's really good. Chin finished his drink. I should go. Early shift tomorrow. Detective. He turned back. Thank you. For saving my life that night. For making sure Brandon couldn't hurt me or anyone else. For helping us clear the FBI investigation. For everything. His smile was sad, tired, but genuine. Take care of yourself, Sienna. And take care of him too. Men like Miho don't open their hearts easily. You're the exception to every rule he's ever lived by. After Chin left, Sienna found Miho back inside, surrounded by his people but clearly looking for her. Their eyes met across the room and he smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his face. He excused himself from his conversation and made his way to her. Enjoying the party? He asked. Loving it. But I need to ask you something. Anything. She took a deep breath. What we have, this life we're building together, it's real, right? This isn't just you protecting me out of obligation. You're not with me because you see your sister or because you feel responsible. Sarung. He pulled her close, right there in front of everyone. I caught you because I saw someone who needed help. I protected you because it was the right thing to do. But I fell in love with you because of who you are, brave, strong, compassionate, brilliant. You could have stayed broken. Said you healed. You could have stayed afraid. Dad, you loved me back. You could have run when my world got dangerous. Instead, you stood beside me. He cupped her face in his hands. You're not an obligation. You're not a replacement for my sister. You're Sienna Hayes, the woman who made me believe in second chances, who made me want to be better, who made me understand that power means nothing if you don't have someone to share it with. So this is real? This is the most real thing in my life. You are my life. Good. She pulled him down for a kiss, not caring about their audience. Because I have one more question. What's that? She pulled a small box from her pocket. She'd been carrying it for weeks, waiting for the right moment. Inside was a simple titanium band. Kong Miho, will you marry me? The room went completely silent. Every conversation stopped. Every eye turned to them. Miho stared at the ring, then at her, his expression completely stunned. You're proposing to me? Yes. Because I know you're traditional enough that you'd want to do some big romantic thing with your family present and all the proper ceremonies. But I don't want to wait. I want to be your wife. I want to officially be your family. She smiled. So I'm asking, will you marry me? For a long moment he just looked at her. Then incredibly tears gathered in his dark eyes. Nay Sarung, he whispered. You continue to surprise me. Is that a yes? That's a yes. 1,000 times yes. He took the ring from the box, slid it onto his finger. A perfect fit, and kissed her so thoroughly that several people whistled. When they broke apart, the entire room erupted in applause and cheers. Juno was openly crying. Mrs. Park was beaming. Even Miho's usually stoic lieutenants were grinning. She proposed to him, someone shouted in Korean. The American woman has courage, another added. Hyungnim is getting married. The celebration became even more joyous. More soju appeared. Someone cranked up the music. The karaoke resumed with new energy. And in the center of it all, Miho held Sienna like she was the most precious thing in the world. Thank you, he murmured against her hair. For choosing me. For loving me. For making me believe I deserve good things. You do. We both do. She pulled back to look at him. We survived the darkness, Miho. We found each other in it. Now we get to live in the light. Together. Always together. 1 year later. The Sienna Hayes Center for Domestic Violence Support opened its doors on a sunny June morning. The Hell's Kitchen brownstone had been completely transformed. Bright, welcoming spaces for counseling, a legal aid office staffed by volunteer lawyers, temporary housing units on the upper floors, and a community room where survivors could gather and heal together. Sienna stood at the entrance, greeting the first clients, feeling a sense of purpose she'd never known existed. This was her calling, using her own trauma to help others, using Miho's resources and power to protect the vulnerable. Miho stood beside her, now wearing 2 rings. The titanium band she'd given him and a traditional Korean wedding band they'd exchanged in a ceremony that blended both their cultures. He'd taken to wearing suits in lighter colors lately, grays and charcoals instead of unrelenting black, as if he was visually representing his slow movement toward the light. Nervous? He asked quietly. Terrified, she admitted. What if I can't help them? What if I'm not enough? You helped yourself. You helped me. You'll help them. He squeezed her hand. And Sarung? You're not doing this alone. We built this together. My organization, your vision. That's what marriage means, combining strengths to create something neither of us could build alone. She leaned into him, drawing strength from his presence. A year ago she'd been collapsing in a ballroom. Now she was opening a center that would save lives. Mrs. Kong. A young woman approached hesitantly, early 20s, bruises barely visible under careful makeup. I saw the flyer. I need help. Her voice broke. I need somewhere safe. Sienna recognized that look. The fear. The desperation. The hope fighting through trauma. You found it, she said gently. Come inside. Let's talk about how we can help. As she led the young woman into the center, Sienna caught Miho's eye over her shoulder. He was watching her with such fierce pride, such overwhelming love, that it took her breath away. They'd come so far. From a ballroom to a center. From broken individuals to partners in healing. From surviving to thriving. And this was just the beginning. The sun set over Manhattan, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. In his penthouse, Miho Kong looked at the framed photograph on his desk. Himself and Sienna at their wedding, surrounded by family from 2 worlds learning to become one. In the center, Sienna Hayes, now Sienna Kong, opened the door for another survivor, offering safety and hope and the promise that darkness didn't last forever. On a balcony in Queens, Detective Marcus Chin raised a glass to the skyline, silently toasting the woman who'd shown him that sometimes the right kind of wrong could save lives. And somewhere in the city, in shelters and apartments and spaces between, women who'd survived their own monsters slept a little easier knowing that someone out there understood, someone was fighting for them, someone had transformed her own pain into protection for others. In the morning they'd wake to new possibilities. To lives rebuilding. To hope. Because Sienna Kong, formerly Hayes, formerly broken, forever strong, had proven something essential. That being caught by the right person at the right moment could change everything. That love could flourish even in the darkest places. That sometimes the most dangerous man in the room could also be the safest. And that falling when you knew someone would catch you wasn't scary at all. It was freedom. Thank you for joining us on Sienna and Miho's journey from darkness into light. If this story of protection, devotion, and second chances resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss our next tale of forbidden love and dangerous redemption. Drop a comment below telling us, would you trust a dangerous man to keep you safe? What did you think of Sienna proposing to Miho? And where are you listening from tonight? Until next time, remember, sometimes the most dangerous love is the one worth fighting for. Stay safe, dreamers.